Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another one of our sessions. This is going to be called Busting Myths About. Um, and this session will have our Team DSCS director, Enrique Jasso, joining us, which I'm really excited about because Enrique is all knowledgeable, I would say, about the application, the processing, everything there is to know about the application itself. And as you can see, we are Texas themed for today. I'm going to try to see if my hat stays on my head, and if not, well, then you'll see it falling.
I was gonna say, it's Sheriff Director Enrique today because we're
My
here to
bad.
bust myths. We're gonna make sure everything's in line around here and ready to answer all of y'all's questions. I know you have a lot, and we're really excited to take those on today.
Yeah, so Enrique, since we already have you here, do you have anything to let us know? I know that July is the peak of the season of the application cycle here at TMDSAS.
Yeah.
A lot of our applicants have been in communication with us, TMDSA support, just asking questions about when is their application going to be processed, um, their letters. There's a lot of concern and anxiety right now as to like the processing of it all. So is there anything you would like to let us know about this?
I think it's as is expected. If I were in your shoes and I submitted my application 3 weeks ago, I'd be like, why isn't it transmitted yet? And I'm here to tell you that we are working as fast as we can. This is the height of the application cycle. So when we say things like your application will be, transmitted in up to 4 weeks, this is the time of the year when it is closer to the 4 weeks than it is to the 1 week. So we really appreciate everybody's patience out there. Our team is working diligently to make sure that everything is taken care of, that your applications are processed, that the quality that you put in is also reflected on making sure that everything is accurate, your residency determinations, your coursework, making sure that your letters meet all of the requirements that the schools have set. And so we're firing on all cylinders. So thank you all so much for your patience with us. The schools are well aware that this is the time of the year where things are taking a little bit longer, but I do want to reassure everybody that we are here and we are fully committed to getting those applications out to the schools as quickly as possible. So once more, for the third time, thank you all so much for your patience. And I do want to share a huge kudos to the TMDSAS team, particularly to Sulema here for hosting the office hour sessions. I'm sure that you all have found her to be very knowledgeable, very charismatic, and empathetic to the needs of our applicants. And I really want to thank Sulema for all of her hard work in making sure that your questions are answered and addressed. Hopefully, this is a resource for you all to make sure to ask questions. And I'm so excited to be here to address your questions. So make sure you use that feed on Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you might be watching us. Send us your questions. I will stick around until the last question is answered. And hopefully I won't live to eat my words. But that is my goal today. Make sure all your questions are answered because we really want to make sure that you have everything that you need in order to submit your application.
Yeah, thank you so much, Enrique. Well, first of all, for your kind words, thank you so much. And yeah, as Enrique mentioned, we are here to answer all the questions that you may have. As you know, this is a very nerve-wracking time of the year, and especially with the processing of your application, letters, your scores, all that. And you want to make sure that you have everything ready for your application to be considered complete.
Yeah.
So in the link below, I went ahead and just entered our tmdsas.com homepage. On there, on the right-hand side is a blue box that indicates the date that our team is currently processing applications and letters of evaluation, depending on the submission date, or sorry, submission method. So that's one way that you can kind of be on the lookout just to see when you can expect to hear back on the processing being complete of your letters and your application. And in here, as you can see, is Enrique's application as well, because he is also applying.
Yep.
And so, Enrique, what are you showing us here with the dummy application that you have?
This isn't a dummy. This is my application.
Sorry,
Uh,
my hat.
yeah, I've got my application here ready to go. It's a test application, as y'all can see. I've submitted this application year after year after year. And I just want to make sure that y'all are aware of a couple of things. Our announcements page has several notices that we've posted up. For example, some of you may have seen this, but I just really want to share with all of you that are veterinary applicants that we do have a veterinary schools panel tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Texas, Central Time, Central Texas. We got to really dig into the Texas theme. Central Time, 1 p.m. tomorrow. And we've got both of our veterinary schools joining us to answer your questions about what it's like to apply to veterinary school, get some clarification around the requirements, and make sure that your coursework questions are addressed. So, really excited for that.
Just wanted to make a quick correction. The veterinary schools panel tomorrow would be at 11 a.m. Central Time, or 1 p.m. is for today's session, just to confirm.
Yeah, and tomorrow is Friday, July 21st, not July 20th, as I mentioned earlier. My apologies. But yeah, really excited to have our veterinary schools joining us for that session. How about we jump into some of these questions?
Yeah, I was going to say. So I'll go ahead and just go down the line. And first question here is from Wow52. I was in a postbac with Texas A&M Dental this year. However, due to some circumstances, I was unable to continue in the program. Should I contact the dental schools and explain my situation? Let's see. Can what? Enrique, do you want to go ahead and try to tackle this question for us? Hold on, you were on mute.
Mute.
There we go.
All right, there we go. I meant to say wow, 52. So yeah, this is a great question. I mean, obviously, it's not a situation that you expected to be in, and having to leave the post-bac program. And so one of the ways that you can really explain this to the schools is obviously in your coursework section, you're still going to include the coursework that you did. If you happen to have left the semester midway, you would mark that coursework as incomplete. But I think this is a great opportunity for that optional essay that you have to really explain the situation, what's going on, and really talk about, hey, I encountered these issues, but here's what I've learned from it. Or even though I encountered this issue, here's something else that I'm doing to kind of help supplement and keep me involved in this pathway. So obviously, I don't want you sharing too many details in public here. But if you do have any specific questions, there might be different scenarios that may have led to your decision to end your post-bac education early. Highly recommend you talk to your health professions advisor. And just as a reminder, there is a volunteer health professions advisor available. If you do not have access to advisors, I can already see Sulema is about to share that link with you all. But this is a really wonderful resource. This is a group of advisors here in Texas who have said, you know what, I'll volunteer my time to help provide feedback for those that don't have access to advisors. So if you're a non-trad student or if you've graduated and no longer have access to a health professions advisor, this is a great resource for you. So thank you very much for that question. Wow, 52.
And I just want to say, wow, 52 found it very hilarious.
We're nothing if not theatrical around here. And informative than theatrical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we just so happen to have a similar sense of humor with our applicants here, as we can see. So I think we will get along. And as you can see below, I went ahead and added the link to the oh, I forgot the LN final, but that's okay. I provided the link below, and that is correct, and it's accurate. You can go on there, and it basically just show you how to find an advisor potentially at your undergrad institution if you are still there, and if not, you can fill out a form to find or request a volunteer health professions advisor. Like Enrique mentioned, this is the best option for those who have been out of school for a while and no longer have access to a pre-health advisor from your institution. If you've been out of school for a couple of years, this would be a great option for you.
Yep.
All
All
right,
right.
so
What's next?
moving along with our
Trucking
questions.
along.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, still on sync, Sulema.
Oh no, I fell.
Oh, well, we
It's on the
tried.
floor.
We
It's on the
tried.
floor. It's okay.
Hope y'all appreciate our effort.
Exactly. Alrighty, moving on, trucking along with our
Yeah.
questions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the following. From JJ, I heard from another TMDSAS seminar that primary applications are not reviewed until all recommendation letters are in. Enrique, do you mind busting this myth or truth for us?
Yeah, I wish I had like a buzzer or something. I just smash. It's like myth alert, and then it all shakes up. But this is definitely a huge myth. I don't know who shared that TMDSAS seminar. Please feel free to put them on blast and send us an email at info@tmdsas.com because we'd love to talk to whoever shared that information with you and make sure that that's corrected before this myth is keeps spreading. We do not wait on your letters of evaluation to come in uh, prior to us transmitting or processing your application. This is something a completely separate process, and it's to your benefit to make sure that we can process your applications as quickly as possible. So what we do behind the scenes is we actually have two separate teams processing your applications and another team processing your letters. So those don't have anything to do with each other. We'll transmit your letter whether your application has been submitted or not, and then it'll be available to the schools once your application is transmitted. But the two systems don't really interact with each other. We try to keep that as effective, as efficient as possible.
Yeah, thank you for addressing that. That's a question that we definitely do get a lot, especially since the processing of letters is also at its peak right now. And so we also get that question, phone calls and messages. And the answer to that is that, just to reiterate what Enrique said, and it's a good thing he can back us up on this, but these processes are separate from each other. So your letters will not affect your application will not affect your letters.
Yeah, and we actually had a session with Dr. Kellaway from Long School of Medicine a few weeks ago, and she also shared that they'll start looking at applications. So if your application's already transmitted, but your letter's not there yet, they'll start looking at your application and they'll wait for those letters in some instances to reach out for interviews. So if you have one letter that's missing or you're waiting on that fourth letter and you see that some schools say that your application's incomplete because your letters aren't there, that's not there to freak you out. And we're definitely not trying to keep you from having the best opportunity to uh, be reviewed by the schools. The schools are well aware of our timelines and where we currently are, and they're also well aware that sometimes you have three letters that are ready to be reviewed, and you're just missing on one, or you have your HPAC is ready to be reviewed, but your optional letter isn't in yet. So they're well aware of what's going on with the applications. Again, these schools have been doing it for years. TMDSAS has been doing this for 53 years. These processes really haven't changed. And so we really want to emphasize to you all that if your letters are still pending, just give us a little bit more time. Know that we're working diligently to make sure that all of those are to the schools. And just remember that we have constant communication with our schools. We have constant updates going out to the schools. So if a letter shows up today, by tomorrow, the schools will see the letter on their end. So it's a really quick process in terms of when something arrives at TMDSAS and when it's available to the schools.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for giving us that insight. I did want to mention that JJ did have a follow-up to clarify. So now that you have mentioned the processing of letters on our end, to make sure that we're clear, in this example for JJ's question is my fourth optional letter writer cannot submit his letter until September, but the other three required letters are already submitted.
Mhm.
Will the medical schools delay the review of my application until the fourth letter is in?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And unfortunately, I at Team DSAS don't have the definitive answer, but I can share some schools, like how Dr. Kellaway mentioned, Long School of Medicine, will start reviewing applications even before the letters are in. Other schools will wait until that flag is cleared that all letters are in before they'll start reviewing. It just depends on the volume of applications the schools have to go through, the internal processes that they have. So unfortunately, I can't speak with authority to say, yes, all schools do this or all schools do that. But just know that it's a blend. I mean, we do have 14 medical schools in TMDSAS. We have 4 different dental schools, 2 veterinary schools, and a podiatry school that are part of TMDSAS, and they each are governed by their own admissions office and processes based off of the mission that they're trying to accomplish. So, in short, I know it's not the question that it's not the answer that you wanted to hear from me. But yeah, sometimes the schools will wait to extend an interview offer. Other times they'll say, hey, we've got some letters. Let's go ahead and reach out to that applicant. So it's really on a case by case basis.
Yeah, thank you for telling us that. I did want to mention that sometimes the schools, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but from what I know, the schools do have different times that they schedule the download of new information that is received from TMDSAS. So my understanding is that whenever we make an update, let's say that we upload a new letter or the applicant goes into their MCAT or DAT page and they change or update a new test date and we get that score. If the application has already been transmitted, the schools do have that information readily available. But sometimes the schools, depending on what their process looks like, they might download that new information overnight. They might download it on a weekly basis, but the point is that the schools do get this correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if I know there's been cases that sometimes we'll get questions about the all four letters or all three letters showing up on the application, but for some reason on your secondary applications this shows it's not received, or the letter or the school themselves has told you, hey, we don't have your fourth letter, but on your TMDSAS application you see that it is marked as received and approved. Just make sure that you let them know that perhaps they need to refresh their data, because that information is readily available to them as soon as we make that update.
Yeah, and I want to share on your application under letters of evaluation. Here we go. Uh, Currently, I have an application open for medical school, and I'm indicating that I'm submitting an H packet. But just to give you the example, we currently have, let's say that Dr. Charles Xavier is going to submit my letter of evaluation. And of course, Charles Xavier is the third. That is my graduate advisor. They'll be doing direct upload because we can actually process those a lot faster than we can process Interfolio. Uh, Charles at xmen.com. This is not a correct address, so obviously it's not going to go out. And I'm going to send it to so that they can upload my letter. So here we have a placeholder that's been created. Dr. Charles Xavier receives on their end, they're able to access the TMDSAS portal and see, hey, I have a request for a letter from Enrique Jasso, from Zulema Melendez, from Juanita Lopez, from James McAvoy, I guess, keeping up with the Charles Xavier theme, and they can see all the folks that have requested letters through their portal. They actually upload directly into this, and we're able to process those letters pretty quickly. So even if you have not submitted your application yet, as soon as this section is created, your evaluators have the link to be able to upload the letters, and we can actually start looking at those letters. So again, we don't wait until the letters are processed to get your application out to the schools, but I just wanted to let you all know that this is something that you can actually keep making updates to. If you need to change an evaluator or remove an evaluator, please feel free to send us an instant message, and we'll be happy to take care of that for you. Just really
Yeah.
wanted to be very thorough with that response to Lame. I apologize. It took like half our session.
No, that's why you're here to answer the
I
questions.
love being thorough.
Exactly, and this is exactly another
And,
reason why you're here.
and so did JJ. Thank you, JJ.
All right. So, changing gears a little bit, but this is a question from Plucky_0. If I do a MBS program at a DO school, will I still be eligible to attend an MD program? Planning to do an MBS program this fall as a gap year and then start fall 24 at an MD school.
Yeah, I think this is a great question to ask the schools, but I can tell you, in probably the last 10 years, we've definitely seen a huge shift in the integration of MD and DO programs, where there have been additional opportunities offered to DO physicians that had previously not been available, particularly around the National Residency Match Program now being available to DO applicants. So that means that they have access to both matches, both for DO and the MD programs. So I think right now, actually, DO have more opportunities than an MD applicant. With that in mind, coming back to your question, planning to do an MBS program as a part of your enrichment year, and then starting at MD school in 2024, I think is going to be perfectly acceptable. Just make sure that the time doesn't overlap with when you would be matriculating. Most of our schools will matriculate over the summer, so just be very careful that you're not planning to be in a master's program as you're starting your medical school career.
I did want to mention from the technical side, if you do not already have this school or this program on your application, you can always edit at any time in your application, especially if you don't already have the school listed. You can always go back into your colleges attended section, add the school, add the terms that you will be attending for this program under terms attended. And then lastly, you can go into your college coursework to add in all the courses that you will be taking.
Yep.
Alrighty. Here we have a short, small question about, let's see. Actually, no, Enrique, I think this is a great question for you to answer.
Here we go.
What errors on a primary would delay processing times?
Novin's asking the $1,000,000 question right now. Let me count the ways. Number one, if there's an error with your photo that gets uploaded, it actually would corrupt your application. And that's one of the technical issues that we have to make sure is not there, because the schools rely on several documents that would include your photo just to give them a quick glimpse. Once they do 1,000 interviews, they want to remember, hey, is this Sulema? And then look at the photo. So photo is actually very important in your application and the types of documents that we take a look at. So if your photo is corrupt or it's too big or it causes a technical issue, and you would definitely see this on your end, then we have to go in, remove the photo, request a new photo, wait for you to respond with a new photo, and then re-upload that photo and keep moving with your application. That's one thing that can cause a pretty big delay. Another one is errors in your coursework. I know we tell you that there are, do the best of your ability, enter your coursework, and I'm happy to show you what my application is going to look like, just to show you some of the issues that I've encountered when we're processing applications. So I'm going to share my application here. So for example, in my summer two, in 2022 at ACC, I took a regular class that was a biology area. And it was, let's say this was Bio 101, which was genetics. Y'all should laugh at that because that would never happen. And I say that the course area is a lecture, even though I said that it's 3 hours. So lectures are typically about 3 hours if you're on a semester schedule. But sometimes we see folks like, oh, this is a biology lab, that's 3 hours, even though it just says genetics lecture. So it completely contradicts what the code is here. So keep in mind that I know how annoying it is to enter each course in the application. On the back end, our team is looking at every single course and making sure that every single data point is correct or makes sense. Sometimes we'll see an applicant who goes in and says, oh, this course was 18 hours, and then they'll just call it a day for that whole semester. That is actually another situation where we have to stop processing your application, reach out to you for clarification. Hey, you entered this course that said it was 18 hours. What's going on? Wait for you to respond and then move forward appropriately. So that's another big area where it could delay application processing. The last one has to do with residency determination. This is another big thing that we do here at TMDSAS. It's very unique to TMDSAS, but we have several laws that our schools have to abide by to make sure that residency is accurate for purposes of admission. And so in some instances, we have to require additional documentation. Our application will actually generate some placeholders for you automatically for you to upload additional documentation in some instances. So if there is documentation that's requested of you automatically, go in and upload those. Those can include something like a warranty deed, a letter from your employer, which again could take even more time to reach out to an employer to say, yeah, Enrique worked for us in a part-time capacity as a student. Because on our end, we can't tell if it's a part-time position, a full-time position. If you're working at NIH because you're wanting to move to the DC area and establish residency there, or if it's just a student position that's temporary. So a lot of these little things kind of stack up and kind of delay processing. So unfortunately, even though we're in the height of our application cycle right now, we're still encountering some issues like this. So those are probably the three biggest areas that could delay some processing time. And as you notice, the overlapping theme is largely waiting on the applicant to respond. So that tends to be a lot of our delays here is we're waiting on an applicant to respond. Now, I will reassure kind of everybody on the queue, even if we encounter an application that has a problem, our team addresses the problem, figures out the next steps. If we're waiting on the applicant, we'll put that in a separate queue and we'll continue working on the next application in the queue. So even though the previous 25 applications had delays, we do want to make sure that we are equitable and fair to everybody in the queue. And we continue to make sure that the applications are ready to go. We can get those transmitted and out. So Novin, another super, super detailed response for your question. I hope that helped.
Thank you, Enrique.
Yeah.
I did want to mention that I went ahead and listed the link to an old office hour that I did last cycle. So if I look different or sound different, please don't judge. But it has useful information. I go over what Enrique has mentioned, how to make sure that you enter in your terms accurately, other sections in there to check out for, making sure that you don't miss and obviously, of course, making sure that you print out your application because there are certain sections, aka essays and activities, that you cannot make changes to after you submit. So, therefore, it is important that you review your application. If you can, print it out, but just make sure that you review it as a PDF file format so that way you can make sure that there's no errors or misspellings, grammar, punctuation, etc. Because then you wouldn't be able to fix that later on.
Mhm.
And Enrique, you made another point about you made several points, sorry. I just remember catching, I need to go back and ask him this thing. But if you don't mind going back to your application, that way we can show applicants one, where they can view the PDF of their application, two, how to
Yeah,
send us a message that you were talking about.
you bet.
All right.
So the way that you can actually look at your PDF, once you submit your application, it'll be complete. But here I'm going to click on this link on my homepage, the 2024 application. And I'm going to share this new tab. It's going to open all the Adobe things to make sure that I'm compliant with Adobe and I have the latest thing. So give me a second so I can close these. But here is my PDF application. Let me zoom that in a little bit. Now, this application doesn't have a lot of information on it, but everything that I've entered in the application will show up here. And just a quick, I guess, a spoiler alert, this is the exact same PDF that the schools receive on their end and will use in some instances for screening and for reviewing applications. So one of the things to pay attention to is the record of college work. You enter each course individually, go back and make sure that your genetics lecture was entered as a bio lecture and maybe it was not 18 hours. And then make sure that your English courses are coded as English. Make sure that a theater arts class is a non-science. We've seen a lot of courses where it's like, oh, I'm going to enter this science of basket weaving. It seems like a science, but then it's taught in a completely different course area. Biology, chemistry, physics, and math, BCPM, are all calculated into a specific GPA. And so we want to make sure that it's only the hard sciences that are really being included in that GPA. So that's going to include your biology, chemistry, physics, math courses, biochemistry courses, definitely included in that. Physics courses, statistics, calculus courses are all included in that. It starts to get into the gray areas where it's like, oh, this is a course, but it's like teaching for biology. And it's like, that's not necessarily a hard science, even though it's taught in the biology area. Another instance would be if you have another course, like for example, for statistics courses, those tend to be cross-listed in different departments. So we might see a course that's statistics for business majors. It's like, does this school really have the same topics that are required for the medical schools being taught in that business school um, course? And so what the resources that we've created for you all um, are, and I'm gonna have to go into that. I know it's a completely different direction that Salima had asked me to go into, but let me share my screen here so you all can take a look at our course listings page. This is accessible on our homepage through Apply Now and then Course Listings. So here, I want y'all to take a look at this section. This is our course description. So for example, if you have a neuroscience course, typically that's going to be categorized as biology. If you have any immunology, botany, ecology courses, those are typically going to go in as biology. Chemistry courses, anything with a magic word of chemistry, will typically be chemistry. Organic chemistry, we want to keep that separate, and so we want to label that as OChem. Anything biochemistry or taught in a biochemistry department, if you go to a school that has that, should go into biochemistry. Physics, anything physics related, again, goes into that physics section. For statistics, if your health professions advisor says that a course meets the statistics requirement included on here, so if you took the course that is recommended for pre-health majors for statistics, that's likely going to be accepted here. If it's not one of those courses, you need to make sure that these topics have been covered in that statistics course and enter that course in your application. Part of our review is making sure that the courses meet the requirements. So if you see that, for example, your stats course was coded as other science or not as statistics, you can actually submit an appeal if that's one of the issues that you have where there's a deficiency in your statistics. For English, composition, rhetoric, literature, English, anything like that can go into English. But some humanities courses may be used if they're cross-listed or have a writing flag or are identified as a substantive writing component. For our veterinary applicants, anything that has to do with animal and agriculture sciences will all be categorized within this section. Any algebra, applied mathematics courses go into math. Anything with a magic word of engineering will go into this section. This does not go into your BCPM, but it is something that's available to the schools to take a look at. And this is particularly important for some of the new medicine and engineering programs. For other sciences, this will include some things like psychology courses, some nutrition courses, and other things like that, where they're not necessarily the hard sciences, but may be included in BCPM on a case-by-case basis. So that'll include your geology, meteorology type courses. And then non-science courses is going to be anything that's non-science. You might see some things on here that's like, that's interesting, like political science has science in the name. Definitely not a hard science. Similarly with library science, but these are some of the things that we encounter. And this is available as a resource to you all. Again, Apply Now, course listings. We also have some listings by university. These are not exhaustive in that they don't include all of the schools and they don't include all of the courses listed at schools, but some of the courses that we've encountered are included on here. So sticking with the Texas theme, we're checking out Texas A&M University. So here you can see all of the courses that have been approved under biology, under biochemistry. Typically, these are going to be available for our larger institutions because there tend to be more departments and a little bit more wonky in which courses will fulfill a different prereq. So this is something that you can refer to make sure if you have some confusion. But for the most part, you know what a chemistry course is. If the chemistry course is a hard chemistry course, then you know that, and you can list it as such. The other part of Suleima's question was not necessarily around that. It was around taking a look back at the application and seeing the different statuses. So I apologize I ventured out, Suleima. Here we go back again. Looking at my application here, each of you has this homepage that you log into, and you have the status page. So here it'll show you when you've completed each section of your application, and then when you've completed the submission. When your application is transmitted, you'll see all the schools that are active and whether or not they've been submitted to the school. And then you'll also see a calculation of all the different GPAs. And this is why that quoting is so important, to make sure that your undergraduate courses are listed as undergrad, that graduate courses, post-bac courses are identified as such, because we do calculate these different GPAs. And I know I've said this in previous sessions, but there are hundreds of GPAs that we calculate, not just these, but essentially these, and also looking at each semester that you've taken, each undergrad course, each undergrad year, your graduate school years, your post-bac school years. We'll also take a look at specific sections. So for example, we mentioned that organic chemistry is coded separately. So we can take a look at your organic chemistry GPA as well. So there are so many different types of GPAs, so many different ways we slice these. So this is why we really want to make sure that that's entered correctly and why it's so important. And then finally down here, you can see when your letters are received. It looks like my evaluator from ACC hasn't submitted it yet, but of course that's a fake evaluator I submitted. And also it looks like I haven't sent in my MCAT test scores yet. As soon as you have your MCAT test scores, you can actually submit them to TMDSAS, and they'll pop up within 36 hours. So even if, like, for example, here, I already have the score for January, but I haven't taken this September MCAT yet, send us your scores for the first one. And that way the schools can see, hey, this person didn't receive the score they wanted, and they're going to retake it. So don't fret on that. That's actually an automated process. So regardless of when you send us your scores, that'll happen within 36 hours. So again, I went on a total off-road detour there, but hopefully that helped address some of the questions.
Yeah, Enrique, one last thing, if you could just show us on the application, just so that our applicants or viewers right now can see where they can send us a message in their portal, where that's located.
I knew I missed something.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Deputy, you're doing your job, keeping the sheriff yeah. So on every page of the application, you'll see that this top corner is going to stay the same. There's no page of the application where the top corner changes. And I just want you all to know that right here where it says send message to TMDSAS, I can actually send a message. And I'm going to send a message to Sulema. All right. It is giving me an error. Great timing. Here we go. Create new messages. So I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I have a, sorry. Which one is it? Additional schools. Adding Texas, no, actually, UT, RGV, School of Podiatric Medicine. Hi, Sulema. I hope you're having a magical day.
Believe it or not, we do get some lovely messages like that from applicants, and it's very nice to see.
Could you please add UTRGV, SOPM to my application? Thanks, Enrique. And so Sulema receives that in her queue. And since I've already submitted my application, she can go in and add that school. And then once it's completed, you can actually go back to status and we'll be able to see where that school has been added down here. If you have not submitted your application yet, you could just go right back to select schools and add or remove schools as you wish. All right.
Well, I do have another $1 million question. If you could help us address this.
Yeah.
Now, viewers have known about applying early, not applying late, but there's just a lot that goes into all that. So we do have a specific question that it asks from Karen here. Hi, if I apply by August 5th, will this be considered a late application?
Ooh, isn't that the $1 million question?
It sure is. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. So we've got several viewers watching here. I want to ask kind of open-ended question: is submitting an application on August 5th considered late? So if you hit submit on
Hmm.
August 5th, is it late? Let me know in the chat here.
Oh, so we're doing a poll now.
Yeah, impromptu
Okay.
poll.
I do love polls, actually. All right, so you heard it, folks. Go ahead and let us know if submitting your application by August 5th is considered late. Let
Yeah,
us know.
we're all here about collaboration. We're not here to shame anybody. So we just want to make sure that everybody's aware, and we're supporting each other here. We're not competing. We're supporting each other. So all right, we'll give y'all about a minute.
All right, I think we already have two right here. From Shayna, June submission is just fine. Oh, I think this is the answer, not late.
Yeah,
Karen says no. Smiley face question mark. I agree. August is late, is what Yvonne says. Dee Dee says not technically. So answers are kind of like all over the place here.
yeah.
Plucky says no. JJ says might be a bit late, but better than not trying at all. That's a good point.
Gold star, JJ.
That's definitely what was the famous phrase that you say if you didn't submit your application, then you're definitely
Yeah, if you don't submit your application, you're definitely not getting it. I can guarantee you that 100%.
And then Joe says yes.
Yeah,
So, do you mind addressing this for us? And I know this is a myth that goes around everywhere, not just with TMDSAS, but also MCAS and COMAS, all the other application services that are out there. So, can you just let us know?
yeah,
Novin says depends on when secondaries are submitted. So, yeah, we have a variety of answers to that. So, uh,
yeah, for
take it
sure.
away.
And I'm clearly stalling, trying to make sure that I have this presentation up and going to get you a really great graphic. And of course, it's not on that presentation. Sorry about that, y'all. Uh, but we have a great graphic that I really want to make sure that y'all can see. And it has to do with when you actually submit your application and what that looks like. I'm going to just share this here. Um, but yeah, submitting in early August, not late. Submitting early September, not late. Submitting early October, not late. Submitting November 1st, probably late, but still, we'll get looked at. Everybody who submits their application by the deadline will get looked at by the schools. But just know that the later that you're waiting to submit your application, the fewer spots there are available for interviewing. And so that's one of the things that we really want to make sure that you all are aware of is as you are waiting later and later in the cycle, you're kind of playing a game of chicken to see if the schools have a spot available for you. And I'm really trying to use Texas-y idioms here. I heard one the other day. It's like, well, you lit up just like a candle when I mentioned blah blah blah. So we really want to make sure that the schools light up just like a candle when they see your application. And what that means is submitting your application November 1st, it will still get processed, it will still go out to the schools. But by the time that the schools get your application, it's around Thanksgiving time, meaning that they'll probably give you, in the best case scenario, can extend an interview offer in December, which y'all know that half of it is probably taken up with holidays. In January, when some folks are still trying to come back from the winter break, or maybe even at the very beginning of February. And that's your window for getting interviews. So it gets very, very tough at that point. For those of you that submitted in June, your application is getting transmitted right now in July. So by August 1st, a lot of the schools are starting their interviews, and then they'll be able to consider your application for all of the available interview dates. So that's kind of the game that I want you to kind of consider. The later you're waiting, the fewer interview dates are available for your application to be considered. But submitting late, submitting early, I don't want y'all to kind of have that weight over you. I want y'all to think, when is my quality application ready? At what point can I submit an application that really reflects all the effort that I've put in, all of the work that I've put in? When is that? Whenever that is, that's when you can submit your application. But also keep in mind balancing that uh, having your application in front of the schools for the most available interview days. So yeah, August, not not late at all. If the schools wanted you to submit in June, the deadline would be in June. So just keep that in mind.
All right. Since we couldn't let you guys all see the timeline that Enrique was referring to, I went ahead
Mhm.
and just linked below. Let me make sure I went through. Yes. So we do have another video on YouTube. Now, mind you, it's a little bit later, so don't judge Enrique's voice. But it's called The Importance of Applying Early to Medical School. Now, I know that's for medical applicants, but this can also help veterinary, podiatry, and dental applicants kind of get an idea of how that that timeline that Enrique was referring to looks like, depending on when you submit your application. The schools essentially for the medical schools, they have their interviews as of August 1st all the way until February, I believe. And so they have like this size of the spots open for the interviews. And as you start to submit your application later, that window shrinks a little bit even more every day until February. So that's what we mean by there's not necessarily a time when you are submitting late, but it's more of like how when you submit your application can kind of help kind of determine how many spots are available for you to potentially get interviewed. And so that's what you want to watch out for, while at the same time making sure that you're not just submitting for the sake of submitting, because you do want to make sure that you submit the best application possible, that it's best quality, shows the best that you can reflect on the application itself, and not just submit something just to submit and see what happens. You want to see, hopefully, you get in the best quality. I mean, you're also paying for the application. So
Mhm.
take your time, but also just be mindful that, well, yes, even until submitting on the deadline day, November 1st, it's still submitting on time. Just know that, be mindful that your interview slots are a little bit shorter, to potentially be told to get an interview. So,
Yeah, very well said. And
mhm.
I do have two slides I'm going to share with you all here just to really keep driving this point into the ground. The first one here is to show you the past couple of application cycles um, and the difference of when folks are applying to medical school, particularly. So I want y'all to see, of course, we're going to see this huge wave of applicants coming in June. We're still going to see a huge wave of applications coming in July. And then throughout the rest of the cycle, we're actually going to continue to see applications coming in. So you're in good company if you're submitting in August, if you're submitting in September, but just be aware that there are already interview days that are happening at that point. And this is the graphic that Sulema and I wanted to show you all earlier, where we're actually showing you three different scenarios where somebody's submitting their application in May. It takes us up to 4 weeks to process. The application's in the school's hand by the middle of June. For somebody submitting in July, right around this time, the application is processed for about a month, and in August, you'll actually get the schools to start looking at application. And so this is around the time that interviews begin. So even if you miss the first or the second interview day, you still have the vast majority of the interview timeline to be considered. For those that are submitting on deadline day, there is still some green where interview dates are still happening, but this is a much smaller window than those that are submitting earlier. So this is kind of how we wanted to share with you all how important it is to submit your application early. But again, I really need you to balance having an exceptional application. If you're still waiting on MCAT scores, submit your application right now. And when your MCAT scores come in, we can actually get all of that transmitted to the schools at a very similar time. If you are still waiting on letters, submit your application, get that in, put it in the processing queue so that we can get that out to the schools as soon as possible. But don't let those two things kind of stop you. And we're seeing a lot of feedback where applicants are like, yeah, I'm going to submit my application once my letters get in. Nah, you can go ahead and submit your application now and kind of use that month that it takes us to process to get your supporting documents, your letters, your test scores submitted.
Perfect. So just to make sure we hit it home, Didi asked, not sure if someone already asked, but if submitting at the end of June consider early, late, etc.
Yeah.
Oh.
Submitting at the end of June is considered submitting your application. We shared some data here. Submitting by the end of June here, that's where you are. You're part of this larger group. This is why right now we're currently closer to the maximum amount of time that it's taking us to process, because this wave is much larger than what we see later in the cycle. So again, thank you all so much for your patience as we're processing applications.
Yeah, and I just wanted to emphasize that that little graphic that you showed us had most of the applications submitted in June. And so that is why, if you count 4 weeks, right now is the time that it's going to take for those applications submitted in June to get to the school. So our team is processing those applications that were submitted in June and trying to making sure that they get sent out to the schools as fast as possible. So that is why July is the peak of the season, because everyone's submitting in June, we are processing those applications in July, and that is why it seems like it's taking forever. But as you saw from the graphic, everyone submits in June, most
Yeah.
everyone.
And you see that that trend happens year after year, so the schools are
Hmm.
very well aware.
Yeah, and so it's
Mhm.
very normal. Don't think that this is outrageously abnormal and we don't care about you or we're not looking at your applications because it's just
Yeah,
taking a little bit longer.
yeah. I think I could bring back the due to unprecedented times, it's taking us maximum amount of time to process your application.
Please don't
If
take me
you if
back to
you
COVID.
I know if you rolled your eyes, kudos to you. All right. Well, it's exactly 2 o'clock. Do we want to do like a speed run of the questions that we have left?
Yes, please, because
I
we do
promise you,
have
I will try and be
some.
brief. Go ahead.
Uh, I can answer this first one. So, what is the latest MCAT date TMDSAS accepts for the cycle? I can actually look at my right. It's going to be September 9th is the last MCAT test date that the schools will take and consider for this application cycle. All right. There's a similar one about the MCAT, just very briefly, taking a little later on the MCAT in August. Is this too late? Like I just mentioned, the last day to take the MCAT and it will be considered is September 9th. So you are good to go as long as you have an MCAT to submit what you have. And let's see. Um, so just to, I guess here Elizabeth is following along with what we've mentioned. So certainly still in contention before the deadline, but a little later than ideal. This is referring back to submitting your application early, late August, June, July, August, September, October, November. There you go. Stops at November. Let's see. And wow, 52 says, of course, it's not late as long as you submit your best and strongest application. Totally agree on this.
Exactly.
Okay, I think the last one we can address is, should an applicant apply to all schools? So click all schools that are available on our application.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's nothing stopping you from applying to all schools. We have flat rate application fee, and we really want to make sure that you have the opportunity to cast as big of a net as you can. Again, the best medical school is the one that's going to accept you. The best dental school is the one that's going to accept you. Veterinary school, same thing. Podiatry school. So with TMDSAS, two of the things that we're really committed to is making sure that we keep a tight ship to make sure that our cost to our applicants is as low as possible. And you see that in our application fee. It's $215 flat rate application if you submit to one school or all schools. And so I really want to emphasize, there's nothing should hold you back from applying to all schools, particularly because Texas has some of the best schools around. I mean, visit any one of the websites for our schools, and we have top ranked schools for rural medicine. We have top ranked schools for tropical or tropical diseases and research there. We have top schools in research. We have top schools in meeting the USMLE STEP exam and making sure that their applicants are, or that their students are entering residency programs. You cannot go wrong with any Texas school. The thing that you can do is try to push to a school that maybe not something that you feel is a good mission fit. And so I really challenge you to really research the schools, but there should be nothing stopping you from submitting to an application to all schools.
Nice. Thank you so much. Enrique, of course, thank you so much for your time. I know you have a busy schedule, but I appreciate you being able to come out and help answer all of the applicants' questions that they have. Very valid, very real. And I feel like you did a lot of the myth busting for us today. So thank you so much.
Well, of course. And as I ride off into the sunset with our Texas-y cowboy themed
On your
session today,
horse.
yeah, here we go. I want to thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts and for your professionalism throughout the cycle. I know it can be frustrating. I know it can be scary, but just know that this is part of the cycle. We'll get through this together, and I want you all to know that we are here. We're ready to help you. We are so excited to see your application and send it off to the schools. So if there's anything we can do on our end to help you hit that submit button, or make sure that you have everything that you need in order to submit, don't hesitate to reach out. As I mentioned, you saw how to send a message to Sulema. She is probably the person that's going to respond to you and make sure that you have the help that you need. So, again, huge shout out to Sulema for hosting these sessions and making sure that you all are apprised of what's going on and make sure that you have what you need to be successful. And also, thank you all so much for your patience with our team. We're working as quickly as I can. Right now, I'm actually going to help out with getting some more applications out the door. So I'm jumping onto that team right now this afternoon to make sure we can get to those applications. But thank you all so much. On behalf of TMDSAS and Texas Health Education Service, I want to wish you all the best of luck, and just know that help is here whenever you need it.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see y'all next time.
Yeehaw.